Today we'll have a first look of the Brise Fugaku. This is one of the most expensive, audio you can get for Hi-Fi, or even compared to speakers, it's really expensive, costing about 17,000 USD. And I want to thank Jaben for this because they helped me reserve a set without even me paying a deposit. I just messaged them and they reserved a set for me. I've already done a demo on this, but it's been some time, so let's unbox this, talk about it, look at it, do a little bit of listening, comparison properly this time with amplifiers and stuff. Finally, I'll do some measurements and then we'll talk whether this thing is even something to consider as 17,000 is disgustingly expensive. I just have to say. But when I tried it, I was impressed. So let's do the unboxing. Now this is how it looks like. So they do give you quite a bit of tips. Now this center fit is elastics, and personally I don't quite like it as much. This is a drawstring bag to keep the Fugaku. I'll just keep it like in the case. Now these are the cables. This is some pretty thick cables here. This is the IEMs. We will take a look later. This is the Fugaku's card, and I believe this is kind of like their warranty card. My set is the 3007, so they actually produce quite a bit of sets. This is the M itself. Some cables and charger, which both of them, I don't quite need them. So let's take a look at the IEMs themselves. You can see this is a special box that the cables come out, and this is how the IEMs look like. Now these IEMs are really nice. They are made out of titanium. This is some memory wire, and then you can actually adjust this to actually fit your ear. So this has actually one of the best fitting based on my demo experience. Pretty much one of the biggest reasons why it sounds really good is also probably the fitting itself. Now the IEM is not really huge if you just look at the IEM portion of things. The design wise is pretty slim and small, and there is a good reason for it, and that's because the crossover for this IEM is all in the amplifier themselves. So the amplifier holds all the crossover, while the IEM just hold purely the drivers and the connection. And you notice this cable here. Now there's two colors because this is actually one cable connection of its own, and it can be replaced by, I believe, taking out a screw here. Now this is not meant to roll cables, it's meant more for maintenance, and if your cable is spoiled, that is where they are looking at. Now this Fugaku itself is an 8-driver IEM consisting of a MEMS driver, 5 BAs and 2 DDs, and they are all having crossovers driven separately in the amplifier, and they also have separate amplifications, which I'll talk about it when I look at the amplifiers later. You can see this is the two sets of earphones, and they use a standard tip at the front, and this has a lip. The metal is titanium all the way, and it feels really nice. Overall, I think that the build quality is probably as premium as it gets for a earphone, which is expected, for the price. Now we take a look at the cable a little bit. This is the cable. This, I believe, is their Shirogane cable, the ultimate one. And this cable is actually really expensive. If you buy the cable alone, it's a few $1,000s. Now, whether you believe in cable or not, I'll leave it up to you. But, you can see that Fugaku, really, they didn't cheapen in any material. Even the cable is like top-notch premium. There are stacks with worse off cables than this. And they are not cheap either. So then you can look at the connectors here. This is 2 connectors itself, and each connector has a lot of pins. I don't think you can see them, but each connectors have 8 pins, I believe, in them that will connect to the amplifiers, which I showed later. And notice left and right side is separate because this is like ultra true balance with many amplifiers inside. Then let's take a look at the amplifier itself. The amplifier is relatively heavy. It's quite big. In fact, let me show you a comparison. This is the M9. It is actually thicker than the M9, just slightly shorter. I believe this is 12 cm. It's definitely thicker than the M9. You can see it's pretty much the same width too. It is a very chunky and big device, and weight-wise, I believe it's like 400 gram. It's pretty heavy. Now, this is obviously meant for desktop usage. You can see that they actually put a velvet pad below so that it sits on the table and doesn't slide. And you can see a lot of vents here that is meant for cooling the device itself. The device has two outputs, which is left and right channel, followed by 4.4 balance and a 3.5 input. Now, this device has the crossovers built in, and it also has a lot of amplifiers. I believe they have 12 amplification channels, and that's because each side of the earphone is running their own separate amplification channels. Each group is having one amplification, except for the DDs. The DDs on this device is balanced, so it has two amplifiers instead, making a total of 12 amplifiers within just this IEM itself, this amplifier. Very impressive way of building. This is not unique. There were other devices out there that had separate decks and amplifiers, but this is the first one that is full analog, not using a deck to drive the various driver, purely amplification, and it comes with like 12 amplifiers in a single device. And according to them, this is an active crossover that uses some of the very big resistors and stuff. Now, I do not know a tech, but they are saying that it has a very high, I would say it's a very steep crossover point, and as such, they can control the drivers a lot better. Now, that is all tech talk. So, do you believe in that? I'll leave it to you. But, well, I have seen the schematics of this. It's a very big device. So now, connecting this device is actually pretty simple. I mean, it's left and right. The problem is that they don't really label which is left and right. Let me guess. Now, connecting the Fugaku is straightforward. Just plug in the cables here, and then you are ready to go. Now, for the tips itself, I'll be using my own tips because I've tried it before. I'll just say that the Zelastic tips just don't sound very open. Sounds a little bit more closed up sound, but probably a bit more body. I prefer a little bit more lighter sound, and I will use the Baroque Editech tips to use with this Fugaku itself, and it gives me the best effects. But it's been 1 month since I heard the Fugaku, so I will do all the necessary tip and do an initial listening and get back to you guys on the sound impression once again with the Brise Fugaku. Now that I've put on the tips, I just want to show you a little bit of operations. It's quite simple. Just press and hold and you will on the device. So you can see that this is like the Suranagi. It will actually slowly boot up, and then you can see all the lights on and off. And then you can change the volumes here. That's really about it in terms of control. Now for my sound listening session, I actually use my M17 using a line out, and this is a 4.4 balance line out, but I did lower the gain to medium for the device itself, purely because the recommended input for the Fugaku is 2 volts. Now, I just want to say that just re-listening again, it just confirms a few things to me. Firstly, it is a very, I'll say as full-bodied, powerful sound. Very full-body, very powerful sound. And the dynamics is really good. I mean, from the lowest to the highest, the bass to the treble, everything is just fantastic. From the tonality standpoint, this is like almost perfect. There is really nothing to complain. It also has very little sibilance, even though there is still a lot of treble energy, all the cymbals and bells you can hear very clearly. I mean, I heard things like Ultima, Witch from Mercury just now. Really, really nice. Now, the true outstanding thing when you listen to the Fugaku is the bass and the mids. These two are outstanding. The bass itself is like, it is deep, it is punchy, it has quality, but it has also a lot of control. Now, there are many IEMs with very good bass control, but there is not many IEMs that I've heard so far that has so much control, yet has so much quantity, and it has the quality too. I mean, there is the impact, then there's the sub, there's the vibration, especially when you listen to Ultima from Final Fantasy 14. It is a very nice. There's this area with a lot of low bass hum notes, which most of the time you just hear as one flat note. This one has a lot of like texture, and then you can hear a little bit of chanting behind. It's really impressive. Detail wise, I think it is great, but pretty much I have heard many IEMs with also very good details. And short of comparing, I think the details wise, I think this is flagship level, but nothing that will blow your mind, at least from the detail standpoint. However, from the clarity standpoint, even though it has full body sound, it is super clear. It is not the kind that so much bass, so much body, but you know, have a little of bunniness. No, this has total no bunniness, pure clarity in the mids. It's like listening it in a proper design hall. Now, soundstage wise, at least from my impression, just like that, it has a big soundstage, but it won't blow my mind. I think if you buy and use a headphone, it will definitely get you better. For IEM, I think it is quite big, but I will do a comparison later. So nothing to blow my mind, at least from the soundstage. Now, separation is very good, however. The note separations are really nice. When I was listening to the orchestra tracks like Ultima and Reach for Mercury, the separation is really good. When I listen to more modern tracks like Backlight from Ado, the bass there, the singer there, the little cymbals are there, the small little instruments all in the background are also there. Really nice and very good control. Now, one of the really outstanding part is when you hear something like Yusha, which have very modern, hard-hitting drums, and then the vocalist, and then small little instruments there. This IEM does very well, you know. It is always a clean cut through the track where you can hear everything, yet don't lose the bass and funness of this IEM. Now, I have to say the truth that the IEM, at least based on my sound impression again, is a very exciting IEM. So if you're looking for something relaxing, this is not. This really feels like utilizing the abyss kind of thing. Yeah, it's an exciting IEM. It's not meant to outright just relax all the time. So there's something to note on that. And then I think this is it for my sound impression without comparison. It's been some time, right? So now I will do a comparison and I will try a variety of IEM. I will try different songs, and each song I will pick one IEM so that I'll compare out 3 IEMs to give you the best understanding on how does this sound like. So I have compared the Fugaku versus the MSE, Maestro SE from Fat Freak, and well, the Maestro SE has less bass than the Fugaku. That's how I feel. The Fugaku bass is really insane, especially at the low ends. The rumble is shake your chest level rumble. And it has the quality of the bass too, you know, the impact, the control, the rumble, the texture, everything is just better than the Maestro SE. And that is a tall order to beat the Fat Freak for bass. That's the first thing. Secondly is the body of the sound. The Fugaku has just a lot more body in the entire sound. It feels very filled up, you know, full of energy there. While the Maestro SE just feels a bit more lighter. It feels a little bit more airy. However, that's where the next thing comes in. The Fugaku is a bigger sounding IEM. Soundstage wise, the Fugaku feels like a big sound, very dispersed all around in front of you, while the Maestro SE feels a bit more focused with some air, but in the end it still is smaller sounding. It feels like in your head, while the Fugaku is just like an edge of your head to slightly outside your head. So that's the difference there. I'll say as in details, I think both are about the same. I did feel that the Maestro SE has a little bit more treble energy. As such, treble is a little bit more, I'll say as bitey on the Maestro SE versus the Fugaku. The Fugaku treble is there, it's not as bitey, but it sounds a bit smoother there, but there's all the details. So no issue on details, just not as bitey for trebles wise. Now for the vocals, the female vocals in Yusha, sung by Ikura from YOASOBI, it's just a lot more energetic on the Fugaku. It feels very filled up, very enjoyable. On the Maestro SE, it's also very enjoyable, but it's a bit more lighter tone sounding. So if you like a lighter tone, the Maestro SE is there. But if you want full sound, the Fugaku is just better. So in summary, between both of them, the Fugaku has better bass, bigger soundstage, more energetic sound, mids that are more filled up, and overall a smoother treble. However, the Maestro SE does win when it comes to bitey treble, if you like the AG treble feeling, so that it has a lot of bite there and a lot of excitement there. I think the Maestro SE treble is better. But other than that, there's not a single parameter I feel that the Maestro SE is better. I mean, it can be preference, where if you like a lighter sound, maybe the Maestro SE will work out. Okay, so that is first comparison. Now let's try the next one. Now in the second comparison between the Fugaku and the Radon 6, and I'm using the song Ibarra here. Now I would say that in terms of bass again, once again the Fugaku beats the Radon 6 hands down. The only thing that Radon 6 wins out in the bass, maybe it's I would say it's the final impact. How do I put it? If the bass isn't that heavy, but it's about all the speed, I think the Radon 6 has that speed. And I don't even say that it wins. It's more like it just doesn't have as much low basses and sub basses that the Fugaku has. As such, that mid bass is a little bit more distinct. But other than that, I think the Fugaku beats it hands down. Everything in bass. It's like quality, everything. And the only thing is maybe that edge there, small edge there for the Radon 6. Now, the other thing that is very obvious with the Fugaku versus Radon 6 is the clarity or the perceived clarity of sound. The Fugaku is just way clearer sounding. Now, in terms of body, I do say that the Fugaku is a little bit more body than the Radon 6, but it's not that much. But the clarity in the mids especially is like mind-blowingly better on the Fugaku. Now, the other thing that I did notice among both of them again is the soundstage. Once again, the Fugaku soundstage is bigger, it's more diffuse and spread out, while Radon 6 feels like in the head. So the difference is slightly out of the head and around the head inside. So there's another thing here. Now, I would say as in terms of treble, both are about the same. I do find that the Radon 6 has a little bit more bite there, but that's really about it. Well, this is the difference between the Fugaku and the Radon 6 when using the song Ibarra to compare. So when I compared the Fugaku versus the U12T, I think the really biggest difference is the quantity of bass. Now, I would say as the U12T bass is pretty good, very controlled, but the Fugaku bass is like really that rumbly, low rumbly feel that gives a lot of atmosphere when you are listening to a song like The Witch from Mercury. Really, really nice bass on the Fugaku there. Though I would say as when it comes to the thump and everything, I think they are quite similar. Now, the other thing that is very noticeable is the clarity on the Fugaku. The Fugaku just feels a lot clearer when the vocalist was singing in this particular song. The push of a voice is just a lot clearer. It cuts through the track really nicely. Unlike the U12T, it feels a little bit more diffused and not as clear. Instrument-wise, I think they are very similar, though I do think that the Fugaku just spreads everything out a little bit more. Slightly bigger soundstage with a larger height and depth, while overall the instruments are also slightly more separated with better positioning throughout in this particular track here. Now, I do feel like in terms of treble energy, they are about the same. At least in this track, I don't find any noticeable difference there in quality and quantity. Details-wise are also very similar. But I would say it's because of the better separation of the Fugaku, it does sometimes feel like there is a little more detail there. But if you listen closely, I think both of them can actually render it pretty well. So by now, I think it's pretty obvious after listening my sound impressions, my comparison. I think the Fugaku is a significantly better IEM than even those that I tried. At least the IEMs from like 2,000 to 4,000 USD. The three that I select for this particular comparison, I think the Fugaku is better. I mean, I don't have the mainstream annihilators and maybe something like the Subtonic Storm, but I never fancy those as much. But at least those that I fancy within the 2 to 3K, I mean U12T, Maestro SE, and the Radon 6, this is a significant step up. I have heard those other IEMs. I never felt that they were a step up over what I have, but this was a clear one. And I actually tried to give them the best chance to by utilizing the Mesh Kobo as an amplifier. Very good amplifier. Still, I think the Fugaku is better. Now, the really main thing about the Fugaku is the bass. The soundstage is always slightly bigger and more filled up. The whole, a body of the sound, very filled up, very nice, yet never too warm. Very nice mids, and a treble that is not harsh, relatively smooth. But if you are looking for bite, the Fugaku don't give you that bite. I think there is a very nice tonality with a lot of bass. This is definitely something that if you like bass, you should also try. It is one of the best bass you can ever get. And that's about it for the sound quality section. Now I will actually go out and do some measurements, and we'll take a look at them, followed by my final thoughts on this Fugaku itself. completed my measurements with the Brise Fugaku, and I believe this is like the first time there's any measurement of this IEM. You can see up in the screen here, it's a V-shaped type of IEM that dips until about 400 Hz and then rise all the way up again. And the V shape is actually quite distinct. The base is actually, quite elevated, while the upper mids are also relatively elevated itself. The bass itself, even though I do think it's a lot better than the Maestro SE, when I do compare to the Maestro SE chart, the Maestro SE does go higher in the sub bass. I guess it's just the overall control of the Fugaku is better. And if you compare to something like U12T, that is a little bit more on the mild V, while this is like V-shape, serious V-shape. Well, that's really about it that I can tell from this particular chart itself. You can see that there's of course a rise of the peak in the upper mids that will give you a lot of clarity, and then the bass itself, it looks pretty nice in response, and this is the reason why maybe the Fugaku sounds a little bit more aggressive, a bit more exciting sounding, because of all these very V-shaped kind of frequency response. But beyond all this, of course, the most important part is all the control, how the driver actually sounds and plays in the ear. I think the Fugaku is seriously a very, very nice IEM. In the end of the day, what do I think about this device? I think this is the best sounding device I ever purchased. Other than soundstage and openness of sound, I don't think even my headphones can beat this sound quality, not even the Imanis, which I heard before but never tempted enough to buy. Partially maybe because this is something that I foresee myself using a lot more often than the Imanis, due to the fact that yes, it's bulky, but it's still a earphone that I can carry around. Now, to put in perspective of bulk, right? If you compare to stacking with a Mass Kobo, look at the Mass Kobo. I mean, the Mass Kobo is bigger. And there are many people in this world that does full stacks. And, well, I will tell you that if you are a person that like to stack devices, this is still okay in size. But size is one thing. The part that you lose the flexibility to change the amplifier may be a downside to some. Some of you may want more excitement, change the amplifier, change the cables. The only thing you can change on this device is the tips, which is pretty okay, but options are limited here. So you lose in terms of size because it's bulky. You lose also in terms of flexibility because you have to stick with this system. Now, what else do you lose? Obviously, money. This is ridiculously expensive. Buying a Subtonic Storm with a Mass Kobo is still significantly cheaper, like nearly half the price. I mean, a bit more than half the price, right? If you buy 2 Subtonic Storms, it's still cheaper than this device. Overall, this is an expensive device. It's not something that most people will even consider. Even if it sounds damn good, most people won't even consider. However, that being said, this is like what HE1, like what Shangri-La, what something like Aperio is like. Something that you occasionally just listen to them in a Can Jam or in some audio shop and admire its quality. To most, this quality will never be worth the price. But to some, if you can afford it, I think this is, to me, endgame. I hope you enjoyed this really long first look. And to me, this is how I feel about the Brise Fugaku. See you guys again. Bye-bye.